YouTube, Conductor 165 here, and today we're going to be doing a very special video because we're going to be talking about how I built my custom D261 locomotive. So first I'd like to do a little bit of history on D261. First off, his other name is Class 40. This is important because upon doing research on which engine to use to make this model, I would eventually come across the Hornby D261. And I noticed that something was off about it. It turns out that they actually used a Class 37. I don't know why, but they did. So, in my possession, I would actually own the model called the Manchester Regiment by Mainline, a branch off from Bachmann. And this model is a Class 45, but it is much more closely similar to D261. And as if by luck, I actually had a spare body of this locomotive from previous, so I thought to myself maybe I could do some painting on the not so good body. So with this in mind, I got the other body and I would first just paint it dark green. The detail came out really nicely, and whilst it was drying, I would also put it in front of a heater to speed up the process, which also allowed the paint to get into the more difficult areas. Once that was done, I would paint the top of it black in the respected areas, and even that came out really good too. All the detail is still really nicely there. As for the front, where the face is, it was a bit more difficult because I do not have a 3D printer, nor am I experienced well enough with clay to make the face. So what I firstly did was on the body, I would take sandpaper to the front of it to smooth it down and make it flat. But then using yellow paint, similar but not the same to the back of the locomotive, I would paint it that colour. Once that was done, I would start building the face. Now this is where it gets interesting. I would take a lump of blue tack, take a bit off of it and hammer it flat. I would rub the front of the diesel onto it to get an imprint of how big it needs to be and cut that rectangle out. Then using a sewing needle, as well as some blue tack pieces and a few other tools I'd laying around, I would carve the face, which was very difficult than you think, especially considering the blue tack kept sticking to the workbench. Once that was done, I would put a bit of glue on top of the face to keep the blue tack solid or stronger, and I would also paint the face by painting it a nice grey colour like the rest of the characters, white eyes, and using the sewing needle, the eyebrows and the dots on the eyes. Now, as well as that, there was one other thing that the diesel was lacking, and that was the front buffer set. For the previous body condition had actually lost it. So I would get a bit of cardboard, glue it underneath the front of the face, and cut off two little sections off an earbud piece and glue them on, as well as paint some black circles and stick them onto the front. And that would fix the body issue. The D261 part, as well as the yellow line along the end, the diesel itself, was all applied using the sewing needle or the blunt end of it, and it provided the detail really well. As for the chassis as well, it's not, I don't think it's identical, but it's a much more closer match than what Hornby actually used. And I believe that's the history of it. There's nothing else to talk about when it comes to how I built this thing. So let's have a look around ourselves, shall we? So firstly, it's going to be a bit hard to do because it doesn't actually fit on the desk. There we go. So firstly you got the face. Now the face on the right is what it's meant to be. Now bear in mind, this is made in a very unique and quite silly way, but it kind of looks really well. And bear in mind, the nose is 3D too. It's all a 3D face, and that is blue tack you're looking at, so you wouldn't really know the difference, which I must say for a first attempt in the way it's come out, I am actually quite happy with it myself. Now if we take a look at the length of this thing, wow, it's huge. It's all dark green, you can see the line in there, and if I just bring it closer, you can still see all the decoration. Bear in mind, none of this was primed, it was actually dark blue, and just for reference, I actually have the other body here. This is what it looks like before I actually converted it, and you can see there's a hefty difference. But the thing is, I'm not being big-headed when I say this, but considering how stupidly I built this, it looks brilliant. And if I show you the top of the engine too, look at that. It's crisp near enough. Again, not brilliant, but I'm more than happy with it. And here is where it would have said the Manchester Regiment. If you can hear sirens right now, I don't know what that's about. Now, the back of the engine is still the same, saying IH14. Same as what was on the original model. And bear in mind, if I did ever want to change out these two bodies, it's held on by 4 small clips under the doors. So all I'd have to do is remove this body by removing the 4 clips under each door and put the other body back on. But I'm being honest, how it's turned out, I don't think I want to do that. I've made it so in the future, if I wanted to add different faces... Oh, there we go, the camera wasn't focusing then. If I did ever want to change the faces, I should be able to just take them off easily. But yeah, that wraps up how I built this model. It's a very short video, and yeah, we're going to run him now, so let's get to it, shall we?